Any aspect of an ad that you're running can be tested. But there's three main types of A/B tests that I want to focus on that I think are really important as a social media marketer. The first one is going through and testing out audience characteristics. That means holding everything else the same, but seeing which particular group is going to respond better to a particular ad. The second one is going through and trying different ad optimizations, testing to see which different type of ad might be more appropriate or places where you might run an ad. The third one is going through and trying out different types of creative. What this means is changing out your images, changing out your copy, or changing out the videos you're using in your actual ads. So seeing which ones can perform better. All of these are really cool things to go through and test, and which ones you run are really going to depend on what it is you think is most important to go through and find out. There's a really cool cheat sheet that I've created you can download here, which summarizes these three different types of ads and gives you a nice way of making sense of them, because I know they can be kind of confusing and overwhelming when we first start learning about them. The first type of A/B test is called different audience, same creative. What this means is that you're testing out the same ad on different types of people to see who's going to respond best to it. One thing to note, if you've already run an ad on social media, you can instead go in and take a look at the data on who responded best to that ad. If you haven't run an ad yet, then this is a really good one to go through and do to see which particular group's going to respond best to it. The idea here is that everything is kept the same except who actually sees the ad. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold everything constant, the ad, the copy, the creative, all that stuff, and you're going to create two versions of that ad, one targeted to one group and one targeted to a different group. You're then going to look at the performance data and see if one of those particular audiences clicked more or engaged more or bought more after seeing the ad. For instance, imagine that you're a bridal store, which is what one student group actually worked with, and you're not sure who exactly is going to respond best to this particular photo. You could take that exact same photo and you could serve it to younger women or older women, and you could see which one react better to that. Likewise, maybe you're not quite sure if that particular ad's going to work better on people who are in San Diego or people who are in LA. You can again take that exact same ad and run it in those two different places and see which one's going to get you better response. Another example, there was a group who went through and they were doing a concert promoter as a client, right? They weren't sure what types of posts would be reacted to better by younger people and older people. So you could take this image and you could test this out on teenagers, and you could test this out on college age students, and you could see who responds better to that particular post, teenagers or college students. So again, whole idea here is you're keeping everything equal except for who actually goes through and sees an ad. This is the first row in that cheat sheet I referenced earlier. The second type of A/B test you can go through and run tests out different delivery optimizations. This is different ways you can go through and run your ad. Here you're holding everything constant, everything the same, except for this particular aspect of how you run your ad. A really important one you might want to go through and test out is the placement. This is where the ads actually run. Maybe you want to test out if Facebook does better than Instagram, or Instagram does better than Facebook. Maybe you want to test out stories versus feed and see what happens there. Maybe you have a hunch that feed is going to be better than stories for certain things, or vice versa. You can also go through and try out different types of settings within Facebook Ad Manager as well. You could run one ad with an objective of CPM or impressions, and maybe test that against having reach as an objective as well. Maybe there's other different types of ad settings you want to run too, and see if those impact how well your ad is perceived, right? Maybe it's manual bidding versus automatic bidding, right? Maybe it's also going through and testing out scheduling. Does your ad perform better if you run it on a Friday versus a Thursday, or on the weekend versus weekdays? All these different things are things you could test out with this type of setting. So again, the focus here is taking the exact same ad and then testing that out with different settings. Maybe running one on a Saturday and one on a Friday, or taking the same ad and running it on Instagram and then running it on Facebook and seeing which one performs better. The third thing you can go through and test out is creative. This personally is the one that people typically think of when it comes to A/B testing, because you're trying out different visual elements in an ad, right? Whether it's the copy, the text people might be reading, or the image they might see, or the video they might see. It's a really fun one to go through and do, because you can try out two different images and see which one performs better. You could test an image versus a video and see, is it worth going to the extra expense and effort of creating a video and putting that out as an ad, and does that actually result in extra, conversions or extra engagement from consumers? You could also keep those things the same. You could have the same image, but you could test out the copy. Does the type of language you use in the copy, the phrases you use, the words you use, how long it is, do those different elements affect how people respond and react to that particular ad? So again, idea here is you're keeping everything the same, you're just changing out that one particular aspect about the creative, right? Whether it's, the photos you're using, whether it's a photo versus a video, or maybe you're keeping the photo or video the same, but changing out the text or copy in the actual description you put in the caption. Really fun one to go through and do, and this is the last one described in that cheat sheet we mentioned earlier. For example, you could go through, as these two different ads do, and test out different copy. Same image, everything else, they're just changing out the text being used in those two different ads. Alternatively, you could also go through and you could take two ads where you actually change out the image. You keep the text, the copy the same, but you just change out the photos that are being used in them. Here's two other examples as well too, right? Here we're going through, keeping the text the same, changing out the images, and seeing how that affects how people react to the ad. Other one as well too, two more examples, right? You can see here, although you note they're not perfect. What do you notice when looking at these two different ads? Well, you're going to notice they've changed out the copy, the text, and they've also changed out the photos as well. What that means is that if one of them performs better, or when one of them performs better, you're actually not going to know, was it the text or was it the image that drove that performance? So just be aware of the fact that, again, you want to be changing just one thing at a time, so you really are certain what it is that's actually driving any performance difference. So again, if you're not quite sure about which of these different tests to run, take a look through that cheat sheet, see all those different types that are described, and then think about which are the things that I really want to learn more about. What's going to help me have more effective ads, and what's going to help me solve any problems I might have in my journey, or help me optimize my ad spend.